Bo Melton is an incredible story, but can he be the fourth cornerback for a Super Bowl team? Maybe. The Packers need some help.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. I have been telling you all offseason that the Packers don't desperately need a corner. This was a team that was a top 10 passing defense last year without one. Now, when we were heading into the draft, I said, look, it would still be a place where you could use an A-level player, like, say, Jair Alexander. But if you read what's happening in Baltimore, Jair Alexander has not been practicing and is dealing with an issue that, according to John Harbaugh, he's been dealing with for years. He had his knee drained. That was a problem. The Packers drew a line, and it's hard to blame them for drawing that line. I thought if they could find a corner at the top of this draft, that they would do that. They focused instead at receiver, which you may recall was the place we decided here on Locked On Packers was the number one place where if they find a good player, it would maximally improve this roster. So I stand by all of that. If the Packers are healthy, this cornerback room is good enough. Nate Hobbs, Keisean Nixon, and Javon Bullard in the slot. I understand that nickel question is a real one, but the fact that they have Keisean Nixon, that they have Nate Hobbs, they have options there if that goes sideways in any way. And Carrington Valentine, I still believe in, I still think is a capable starting corner in the NFL. They have three guys that you feel good about or good enough about starting on the outside. But as we've said during training camp and as Bo Melton is making this corner switch, if you lose some depth there, it gets thin in a hurry. Now, before you get doom and gloom about it, and I know there are plenty of Packer fans who are just predisposed. They don't think the current group is good enough. And so the if they lose players, now you're just truly screwed. I understand that perspective. But again, we saw them be successful last year, playing more cover two, playing more cloud coverage to hide some of those corners. You can be effective doing that. They did not lose to the Philadelphia Eagles because of their cornerback situation. But when you're talking about a team who is one of the best in the NFC, and the Packers are one of the best teams in the NFC, you have to start going down the roster and nitpicking some of this other stuff. And it does say something about the Packers that I'm here, late August going, I don't know about this fourth cornerback situation. Whereas the Philadelphia Eagles are going, I don't know if we have a second boundary corner that we feel good about. Keely Ringo, maybe not. Maybe not even a starting caliber player. We've seen the Packers. There is proof of concept on this. And last year, we saw Corey Valentine have to play. And so we know that they're able to make this all work, the combination of Jeff Hafley and Xavier McKinney, but that's where I start to get worried. Okay, Xavier McKinney's hurt. Now, by all accounts, his including, he's going to be ready. They have a backup plan. Javon Bullard is a more than good enough backup plan, but he's not Xavier McKinney. So can you do the kinds of things that made this defense work last year to cover up for those corners if you don't have Xavier McKinney. Now, all of a sudden, maybe the guys you have are just flat out not enough. The Bo Melton piece, like he might legitimately be their next option up, and that is troubling if he needs to be relied on in, say, a playoff game. In the same way that, I think Bo Melton in a vacuum as a upside play, as a developmental corner, I like the option there to develop him. But if he has to play, if he has to start, oh boy. And we saw the Packers have tremendous depth at receiver until they lose their top 3 receivers. Like that, those things do happen. And most teams, if they lose their top 3 corners, for example, would be in big trouble. So, and I would probably say every team. Like the Eagles had the best defense in the league last year. If you took Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay and Cooper DeJean off that team, they'd be the 2023 Eagles, and that team couldn't stop a nosebleed with a beach blanket. So it's just like you have to understand the perspective here. All that being said, the reason that I bring this up is, for one, Xavier McKinney is hurt. And 2, we saw the Kamal had an experience in Indianapolis. It was brutal. And he was a player, had some fans in the pre-draft. I saw some media folks excited about Haddon when he came to Green Bay. Hey, this guy could be something. Maybe. He's not something right now. It doesn't look like. It is worth exploring options at this juncture. Steph Gilmore is out there. It sounds like Asante Samuel Jr. is dealing with injury and wants money, like real money. And so I understand why there's some hesitancy there out there. I think, frankly, Gilmore is waiting for the Vikings to call and say, hey, come back. We'll give you something. Because the Vikings cornerback room is in, frankly, worse shape than the Packers, given what we saw over the last 18 months. That's something that I think you'd have to consider. The flip side of this, though, is, okay, what if the Packers are able to get more pressure with their front? With just their front 4, just Lucas Van Ness and Kenny Clark, who, by the way, is hurt now, and Devontae Wyatt and Rashawn Gary. What if they're able to do that? Or what if they say acquire a big name pass rusher who might be disgruntled with his current team? I'm just throwing out options here. That would make it easier for those corners in general. But again, we saw last year with a mediocre 4-man rush and a somewhat similar, I would say inferior group of corners, just because you didn't have Nate Hobbs on it. You might not have Nate Hobbs week 1, although it sounds like he's going to be ready to go week 1. You were able to make it all work. Just because you made it work one time or over the course of last season doesn't mean that over the course of this season it's going to be good enough. I will say, though, if you get that improved defensive line play, all of a sudden this is less important. I hesitate to even bring this up. Our friend Wendell Fajeda is going to be just so happy I brought this up. What would Howie Roseman do? Well, we know the answer. He made a trade for Jacorian Bennett. He tried to bring someone in to help solve this problem. He knows Keely Ringo might not be it, and so it would be nice to have a real backup plan. Now, the Packers would say, well, they have Carrington Valentine. He's played a lot of football for them and played a lot of pretty good football. I believe led the team in interceptions in training camp. Started to make more plays on the ball in the second half of last year. I don't think he's a perfect corner, but I think you could live with him out there, especially in a situation where you're going to allow him to be physical, press guys at the line of scrimmage. That's why part of why I think some of the cloud stuff worked last year is because you have a guy like Carrington Valentine who if you're going to play cover 2, You want to get hands on at the line of scrimmage. I thought Bo Melton handled himself nicely against the Colts. It wasn't perfect by any means, but you wouldn't expect it to be. He's still learning a new position. But again, that's the point. If he has to play, you're probably in some kind of trouble. There are options out there. Good options. This is why Packer fans complain about Brian Gutekunst not being all in, because everyone can see that the depth here is a question mark. There are pieces out there, players who could come in and help them, and the team is doing nothing about it. I understand that frustration, and maybe it works out, and maybe it's fine, and maybe the Packers are right. But I think fans are right to be frustrated about it too. Speaking of frustration, MarShawn Lloyd cannot stay on the field, but man, I felt like we needed to take an extra couple minutes to talk about the potential there, because we saw it against the Colts. And if they can incorporate him into this offense, it can be such a dynamic piece for them. We'll talk about him next on Locked On Packers. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. Let's say you want to take an adjusted under on the Cincinnati Bengals like I do. I think they might win 6 games. They might win 7 games. We're going to talk about the Bengals later. Hey, look, you got it. I have a parlay to miss the playoffs bet that I've been eyeing. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but guess what I'm waiting for? August 26th. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now. Visit FanDuel, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. It was not a completion. And on TV, in real time, it was hard to see it. But you go back and you watch the end zone angle of the Little Texas route that MarShawn Lloyd runs against the Colts. He sends a Colts defender. The Colts defender does not know where he is. It's just a little shimmy move at the top of his route. He breaks inside, and there is no chance. If Malik Willis can put that ball on him, there's just no chance that linebacker can make a play. Zero chance. Now, the other linebacker squeezed it a little bit, so it would have had to been a really nice play. And guess what? MarShawn Lloyd, after he wins, maybe he needs to settle a little bit in that spot there to make it easier for Malik Willis. Maybe Malik Willis needs to get that ball out a little quicker. But Willis has probably not had a ton of reps with MarShawn Lloyd running those kinds of routes. But this is the proof of concept. His ability in the passing game, his ability to be an explosive playmaker. You saw the wheel route. It's not even like a great route. It's not like it's not like an out and up sort of wheel. It is kind of, I don't mean this in a pejorative way. It is a lazy wheel route, just in that it is to the flat and then up the field. There's nothing, he's not breaking anybody off. He's not snapping anything. It's not that. It doesn't matter, because he's just that explosive of an athlete. Malik Willis puts it right on him. He makes the catch. Not every running back on the roster could do that. In fact, I would wager 0 running backs could do that. Now, they had Josh Jacobs run some similar routes last year. They didn't really throw him anything down the field. They did. I think they did in family night. And I noticed that and I filed that away. I think they'd like to get these running backs more involved in the passing game, because you can create some more matchups that way. If teams are going to play man coverage against you, okay, maybe your receivers are not all great at winning versus man coverage, but you know what you can do? Throw the ball to a running back on a linebacker then. Throw the ball to a tight end on a linebacker or a safety. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave can be answers for you against man coverage, but so can Josh Jacobs, and so too can MarShawn Lloyd. And I think they want to take some shots with their running backs. You want to dare the Packers to beat you in man coverage. Okay, we dare your linebacker to run with MarShawn Lloyd down the field. Halfback seams, halfback rails. We've seen Aaron Jones once ran a slant and go for an explosive against the Chiefs. That was the one, I believe that was the one that looked like a touchdown, but he stepped out. That was the Aaron Jones game where he just did everything in that game, including running a route on third down. It truly is remarkable how many different iterations and ways that Matt LaFleur has been able to mold and shape and change this offense to fit the personnel. That is the job. MarShawn Lloyd's ability to create explosive plays, to create big plays, to take a 5-yard play and turn it into 15. Well, okay, that's cool. And he'll need carries to do that. He'll need to stay on the field to do that. Of course, he'll need to stay on the field to do anything. Emmanuel Wilson is not making that wheel route play. Chris Brooks is not making that wheel route play. Israel Abanikanda is not making, they're just not doing that. And even if it's Josh Jacobs, he might make the play and get tackled. MarShawn Lloyd might make the play and make a house call. It's just a different element to this offense. And in some ways, I think we have on this show, and certainly nationally, no doubt, can't expect the national guys to be in the weeds as they need to be on some of this stuff. But locally as well, I think we have underplayed the degree to which Lloyd could be a factor in this offense if he could stay on the field. But that is a big damn if at this point. His name might as well be if MarShawn Lloyd. Or what's the old Bill Simmons bit is like MarShawn Lloyd if he could stay healthy. I think he said that about Matthew Stafford once upon a time. Still an issue. But if you could get MarShawn Lloyd in that Goldilocks zone, sounds like he has a chance to miss week 1, which would be a pretty big bummer. But if he's healthy in the big games, if he's healthy by the way, week 1 is a very big game. If he's healthy in the playoffs, he can be on his own a matchup problem against teams, especially teams that want to say, hey, we're going to make you win your matchups one-on-one. Sounds like the Bears are going to play more man coverage with Dennis Allen. The Vikings showed a willingness already to play more man coverage against the Packers than they do against other teams. They were playing more man coverage in the second half too, but they played way more man coverage against Green Bay than they had played against basically anybody else. The Lions already play a bunch of man coverage. Now, the Eagles don't. The 49ers don't, but we'll see. Robert Saleh's evolved and changed and grown over the years. We'll see what the 49ers do. The Rams won't, probably. But their whole division is going to. That's 6 games at least, and then we'll see in the playoffs. I don't want to go so far as to say they need MarShawn Lloyd, but for this offense to operate at the maximum capacity that his talent has to offer, he can be a big piece. The upside of what he can do for this offense is real. Him being on the field materially impacts the combustibility of what they bring. And the fact that he can't be out there is just really, it sucks. It's not his fault. And I know that players get blamed by fans, and I know that GMs get mad. Oh, such and such a player is a bust. I never call a player who couldn't stay healthy a bust. Derek Sherrod was not a bust. He broke his leg, and was just never the same. Eric Stokes, frankly, falls in that same category for me. I don't think Eric Stokes was a bust. Eric Stokes, as a rookie, was a really good cornerback. Not good for a rookie, good. And then his leg exploded. And he has not been the same player ever since. Like, that's not a bust. Injuries ruined his career. So, and we're not ready to do the bust thing with MarShawn Lloyd, regardless. But he has to be out there to help this team. If he does, man, it is tantalizing. It is a tease. But boy, is that potential. I mean, you could tell last year when he came in how excited Adam Stenavich was, how excited Matt LaFleur was to get him out there, to get him working. And they're still excited. You can see the Colts game, that was going to be a MarShawn Lloyd game. And then a little tightness in the hamstring. He went to the University of Wisconsin, did the profile, theoretically did the things you hope that if they found asymmetry, that he did what Christian Watson did and he tried to fix it. Sometimes your body just lets you down. And that would be a blow to the Packers because his impacts can be that meaningful. Now, speaking of depth and explosion, I want to talk about offensive line because if you watched Monday night or you watched over the weekend around the league, you will know exactly what I mean when I talk about the Packers' depth. Let's do it next on Locked On Packers. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices at the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed. Did you watch Joe Burrow run for his life against a Washington Commanders team that we don't expect to have a great pass rush? I say this all the time, and I said it last year. I probably said it the year before. The Packers have at least 6 and maybe 7. Anthony Belton did not do much to inspire my confidence on Saturday, but I would still be fine with him if he had to start. I think Anthony Belton would be better than plenty of players that teams ultimately have to start. If you watch these preseason games or you just watch an NFL week, you see teams consistently let down by their offensive lines. And Joe Burrow, I mean, remarkable what he was able to do last year, given the context, given the offensive line now. Throwing to Jamar Chase, throwing to T. Higgins. That certainly helps. And I would take the great weapons over the great offensive line only any day. Like if I could pick one, if you're going to take the extremes, right? The great offensive line and no one to throw to versus the great receivers and bad offensive line. Especially for a quarterback like Jordan Love, I'd take the receivers because Jordan Love's superpower is avoiding sacks. Just doesn't do it and doesn't turn them into negative plays either. But what the Packers have depth-wise is beyond rare. It is unique in the NFL. It just does not exist anywhere else. The Eagles have the best offensive line in the league to my eye. But there was like mild panic when it looked like Landon Dickerson was going to miss significant time because they don't have a bunch of other guys to put in there. Now, it helps that Landon Dickerson is really good. And so, yes, the drop-off is going to be significant. The Lions, look at the Lions. They lose Frank Ragnow. They have to go out and they have to use premium draft capital. They have to try and scotch tape this offensive line together. Yes, they have a premium player in Penei Sewell. But Frank Ragnow was a different breed. Tate Ratledge, they were going to start at center. They scrapped that idea like right away. And now he's playing guard. Unclear if that's going to be as a starter or not. But there's suddenly Christian Mahogany's a new starter. Graham Glasgow is going to play center, and Tate Ratledge, it sounds like, is going to play right guard. So that's a huge difference in what they had last year to now. And after that, who knows what they have to put out there. If they have injuries, those players are just nowhere near the same level. Well, the Packers don't have the ultra elite offensive line, not generally speaking. They have a very good pass protecting offensive line. That was true last year. It's been true for a while. They consistently have very good pass protecting groups. In all the Aaron Rodgers teams, most of them were very good pass protecting groups. Now, what you can oftentimes give up when you do that is you don't have the same sort of beef and power in the run game to make that all work. Oftentimes, you have to sacrifice because offensive line is a hard position to evaluate, hard players to develop because of the practice time. This is not new. The CBA, going back to 2011, has made it difficult to develop offensive linemen, and guys come to the league less ready than ever because the college stuff is not like the NFL stuff, though that has changed a little too as NFL teams absorb a lot of the college passing concepts and protection rules and a lot of those things. But the Packers, who have clearly, comfortably, to me, a top 10 offensive line. They were that last year. They were that the year before. Somewhere between 7 and 12 for sure. But if they have an injury, they stay that way. I don't know that everyone can say that because offensive line is a weak link system. You take one piece out and it can topple like a Jenga board. And so for the Packers, regardless, we opened the show yesterday with Jordan Morgan, being the left tackle and what that means. Well, what if he's not? What if it's Rasheed Walker? Well, then either Jordan Morgan is your right guard or, we've done this a million times, and Sean Ryan is your backup. Sean Ryan's played a lot of football. Or Jordan Morgan is your backup and you feel comfortable with him playing any position except center on your offensive line, and you've got Anthony Belton too. So you've got a good offensive line, period. And then you can keep that good offensive line sustaining multiple injuries on your offensive line. They may not have the best offensive line in the league. I would say pound for pound, this is the deepest. And it's just like at receiver. They have the deepest receiver room in the NFL. It's not the best, but it's the deepest. So you lose, let's call him Christian Watson. You can manage that. By the way, Romeo Doubs back at practice seems to be doing okay. You lose Romeo Doubs. Well, they've got Matthew Golden healthy anyway. They've got Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. They've got plenty of options. If the Buccaneers lose Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, that's a big damn problem. If the Eagles lose A.J. Brown, that's a big problem. If the Bengals lose Jamar Chase, that's a big problem. Better receiver rooms. If the Lions lose Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's a big problem. Now, it's not necessarily novel to say, hey, when you lose a really good player, it hurts your team more, but it is more deleterious to your team when you don't have someone above replacement level to put in there. So yes, going from Penei Sewell to any backup player for the Lions is going to be a bigger drop-off than any offensive lineman for the Packers going to a backup. But that's not how we measure the goodness of an offensive line, because it's not how good your good players are. It's how bad your bad players are. So yes, you take Penei Sewell out and you put in even, a replacement level player. That's okay versus Penei Sewell to a sub-replacement level player. But if you could put in Rasheed Walker, that would be much better. The Lions can't do that. The Packers are better off if they sustain an injury to, let's say, their starting right tackle. Zach Tom's a very good player. He's not Penei Sewell. But if you take Zach Tom out, you could put Jordan Morgan there. That's better than anything the Lions can do or the Eagles can do. And that's really valuable for the Green Bay Packers. All right, joint practices with the Seahawks. That's coming up later in the week. I still have a rookie orientation series. We're going to talk about Baron Sorrell, pass rush development with our pal John Owning. And a little bit, for those of you still listening, I will put this at the top of the show another time, but we are going to be doing extended post games here on Locked On Packers. A Locked On Packers squad show is coming. More details to come on that, but we will do our live shows after the game. That's a half an hour of live Locked On Packers, and then we will do an hour, a full hour. So if you're not satisfied with the half-hour live postgame, we've got a full hour coming. We have some special guests that are going to join us every week. That's going to be an absolute blast. And I want to put the names at minute 30 of the podcast. We'll do a big announcement maybe later in the week about what we're actually going to be doing here. But I want to get you ready for that because it's going to be a ton of fun. I cannot wait to bring it to you. Follow me on the social medias for more. And follow the podcast on the social medias for clips. Always follow us wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating. Leave a review. If you like the show, let other people know that you like the show. Subscribe over on our YouTube page so you can stay locked on Packers.